Hi, my name is Raj Shivashankar. I run the product management team at Censys. Today, as a part of this presentation, we are going to talk about how to evolve your security operations to get best-in-class visibility and take actionability on cloud threats, to take proactive measures for some of the emerging threats that you see as a part of your security operations. As a part of this presentation today, we will be covering what Censys is seeing and hearing about cloud-based threats in the market today. We'll also very briefly talk about the problem space, what an ideal solution for overcoming the problems that security teams face today with respect to cloud threats, and how such a solution will help them evolve and get visibility and better actionability as a part of their overall process maturity and SOC maturity. So if you look at what's happening in the marketscape today, the security landscape is continuously evolving. An enterprise's infrastructure is also constantly evolving. On an average, about 15% of the services on the internet have appeared in the last one day. If you think about this from a cloud perspective and the assets that security teams need to manage, this is a very rapid change. As organizations are transforming and making a transformation to move to the cloud, it is taking on an average about 200 days to patch severe vulnerabilities. Simultaneously, for medium to large scale enterprises, the number of domain registrars that these organizations are working with is also exponentially growing. And today, on an average, it's at about 44 domain registrars. With such a rapidly evolving landscape, what Censys is seeing is that 60% of the risks are due to misconfigurations, including missing security controls with cloud-based assets. Simultaneously, it is taking about 12% of these risks are due to software vulnerabilities with these cloud assets, and 28% of these risks are due to exposure of services, devices, and information about those cloud-based assets which organizations are doing and having in their cloud due to their cloud transformation business processes. So if you think about that from the problem perspective, security teams are today facing severe challenges with getting visibility into assets that attackers can exploit. And this is due to the rapidly changing landscape of remote workforce, a lot of shadow IT, and the cloud transformation projects that medium and large enterprises have today. There are key challenges around detections and the lack of context to take actions on the assets that are there in the cloud, and that goes and revolves around areas such as collecting the right evidence for detection. How do you validate the risk? Simultaneously, as there is challenges with visibility and also detections, security teams are having a hard time to measure if their actions are making any impact on the business. So there are challenges around benchmarking, average length of exposures, and also some of the traditional SLAs that are being implemented by security teams are very antiquated. So if you think about that, the number one focus area and the challenge as a problem that security teams have is when an asset is stood up in the cloud or an asset is organized in the cloud, the first question that security teams need to understand is this asset mine? Does it belong as a part of the organization attack surface? And does it belong as the organization construct that I need to go get visibility on, that I need to go monitor, that I need to go defend? Second, as the decision on is this asset mine being done by the security team, the next question they need to struggle with is, can I trust the detection that this asset belongs to my organization? They also struggle with how important is that asset to the business process and to the business priorities. Because of a lot of the shadow IT functions, security teams also struggle with who's accountable for this asset. Also, with such a cloud-based transformation happening, there is a lack of visibility into, is this asset vulnerable or is it going to get exploited? Now, with the number of alerts that the security teams are facing, they are also constantly faced with, do I fix this particular new asset that has been discovered or deployed in the cloud? or is there something more important to fix? So there is a key prioritization challenge that they face. And simultaneously, as the number of alerts and number of these assets increases, the key question that security teams ultimately come up to asking is, if there is a vulnerability, has it been fixed? And by spending the time to fix this, have we made an impact on the business process? And has it really changed the outcome of what we are benchmarking as the posture of our organization? So with this kind of a problem space, the key challenges that the teams are facing today is to keep pace with dynamic cloud infrastructure changes. They also struggle with asset ownership because in the cloud, assets are constantly changing due to reconfigurations and the shadow IT challenges between the security and the IT teams. There is not a single framework for prioritization of what to identify, what to get visibility on, what to monitor, what to defend, and what to protect. And also, the ecosystem of tools that they are using have significant challenges to overcome around the ability to collaborate and automate. So an ideal solution for a problem that organizations are facing today with cloud-based assets and the threats that they are facing there is to proactively secure their infrastructure by discovering all of the unmanaged assets. And while they discover these unmanaged assets, have a good risk framework to take quick action on exposures that will help them reduce the impact of a breach. And that ideal solution comes with three key capabilities that they need to focus on. First is real-time visibility, where the security team is able to have the ability to get comprehensive, up-to-date, and accurate visibility into cloud infrastructure on their cloud assets. The second is around contextualizing risk, using an actionable risk prioritization framework, which is evidence-driven, based on risk detections, provides deep insight into asset intelligence, and also exploit intelligence. And finally, based on these actionable insights, the teams are able to seamlessly embrace and extend the current ecosystem of tools that help them with this evidence-based risk detections and also risk mitigation techniques that they will need to implement. So how does real-time visibility work, right? You need to have access to constant data about your cloud-based infrastructure. And the newer the data is, the more easier is it for the security team to identify if the asset is a part of the organization or not. And is it something that they need to get visibility into? So as new cloud infrastructure deployments continue as a part of the business process, getting clear line of visibility into all of those cloud assets and having them identified and cataloged as a part of your business process becomes important. The second key data point is as these assets are identified, either through scanning tools or through your existing tools that you might have as a part of your security operations profile, the next data point to worry about is, do we own this asset, right? And based on whether we own this asset, did we detect a risk, right? The order of operation of these particular tasks truly matter because doing one before the other or putting more focus on one on top of the other causes key data integrity challenges. As you see the threat landscape evolve, and as you understand your organizational cloud transformation processes evolve too, right? There's a key challenge that continues to force security teams to continue to innovate, right? Several years ago, before cloud transformation became a real thing, right? Security teams always used to focus on things and have thoughts about everything in their infrastructure as hosts and IPs. Now, recently with the cloud adoption trend that has been going on over the last 10 to 15 years. It's all about buckets and URLs. Now, all of these have exposures. All of these have vulnerabilities, and it's making the problem for the SOC team more hard to manage with a massive number of alerts. So getting visibility into all of these cloud-based assets becomes important. The second is also patching all of these infrastructures, which extends now into the cloud, is almost impossible, right? So finding the exposure in the cloud is more complicated as assets are affected and also are constantly reconfigured. So having a very good visibility framework as a part of your overall solution and as a part of the overall tools that you use to understand your hosts, your certificates, your domains, and your web entities becomes important. Remember, a medium and a large enterprise today has close to 44 different registrars that they work with. That means those are the number of registrars that they need to track, those many number of certificates that they need to constantly make sure that they are updated and they haven't expired, and they need to worry about areas such as spoofing, right? So all of this real-time visibility is going to contribute to key areas of which a security team can focus in terms of exposures. Now, when those exposures are there, they get visibility into observations such as what is managed and what is not managed. Is there a service misconfiguration? Do I have a MySQL port exposed to the public internet? Do I have any sort of information leakage? And that leakage could be something around cloud storage, could be around API keys, could be around databases, could be around file transfers and systems. Or it could even be around exposed devices, like a IoT device or a SCADA device or a storage device like a leaky S3 bucket, right? Similarly, there could be exposed services and interfaces, such as exposure of RDP, remote admin interfaces, network protocols, which are internal to your application that is running in the cloud, but is exposed for whatever reason on the internet. And as we had seen earlier, one of the key challenges that organizations have is around the cloud misconfigurations, right? Your firewalls, your WAFs, your credentials, right? And finally, the infrastructure with respect to expired domains. So getting a clear visibility as a part of these observations and gives you good exposure to the next set of decisions that you can take as a part of the threats that are faced by your security team. Now, some of these exposures can also go into active risk detection, right? Is there subdomain takeovers that I need to focus on, right? Another one could be TLS certificates used for API endpoints and TLS certificates for login pages. There could also be things around the cross-site scripting as a part of the application security, for which active risk detection needs to be a constant area of focus, to understand the exposure that the organization has as a part of their overall security posture. There are also a few evolving adjacent areas of interest. We are definitely, organizations are definitely focused on dark web mentions. They're concerned about typo squatting. They are concerned about areas such as impersonation of their executives, right? So getting a clear line of sight into visibility of the threats and the exposures because of that visibility across these three key areas of observations, ability to do active risk detection and adjacent areas of interest becomes paramount of importance for security teams to focus on. So the ideal solution with getting the right visibility and to the information to the right exposures then leads to making sure that there is a actionable risk prioritization approach, right? This revolves around implementing basic security hygiene, doing deep interrogation into your cloud assets, with your CMD, with your VMD systems, right? There could also be areas that you can focus on with respect to collecting detection evidence, so that as you are making a decision on prioritizing the risk that you are exposed to as a part of your cloud-based assets and the threats that you're facing there, you have the necessary detection evidence to drive your prioritization framework. Simultaneously, you can focus on asset importance to drive your prioritization, right? Are there login pages? Are there production servers? How important are those production servers to the overall corporate infrastructure? Are there critical dependencies of these cloud assets to other internal applications that are deployed inside the zone of the customer's infrastructure or the organization's infrastructure? What is the ease of discovery of these particular cloud-based assets? And what are the various attack paths? And this is really important because there is more than one way in which an advanced threat actor can enter into your infrastructure. So having a clear visibility into the attack path and using that attack path as a part of your risk prioritization framework becomes extremely important. And the last area to focus on as a part of the risk prioritization to make it extremely actionable is to look at exploit likelihood, right? In terms of exploit likelihood, focus on importance such as internet prevalence of those exploits. A lot of the SOC teams rely on threat intel data feeds to understand exploit likelihood. So make sure that that is part of your risk prioritization framework. Try to understand based on other tools that you might have around, are there exploits in the wild that you need to worry about? Also rely on vulnerability information that is available from NIST and other data sources around KEVs and EPSs. And at the end of the day, to drive your risk prioritization and make it extremely actionable, test compensating controls. Because at the end of the day, a asset that is exposed and which is vulnerable and might not necessarily mean that it needs to be patched right away. By implementing compensating controls, you can minimize the amount of effort that the security team needs to put in place for protecting the overall attack surface of the organization itself. So constantly testing the compensating control becomes one of the key input data points for making risk prioritization extremely actionable. And the last choice, and the last option that the teams need to continue to implement and improve on is to enable the automation to embrace and extend the ecosystem. A large or medium enterprise today has anywhere from 15 to 30 security tools that they are using, right? Having an integrated ecosystem across your entire platform, right? Across your cloud-based infrastructure, against your domain registrars, against your IP registrars, and being able to track that through the integrated ecosystem with your SIM, through your CMDB, through your SOAR, through your ticketing, in terms of assets and risks, and making that integrated automation becomes extremely useful and important. So as you implement the automation to embrace and extend the ecosystem, you go from getting visibility with focus on asset discovery, inventory management, service detection and orientation, and basic risk prioritization, to actually having a framework that gives you a risk-based prioritization, have the ability to measure residual risk, and also further drive the automation and the integration of your overall security stack itself. So as you implement such an ideal solution, where can you go next, right? The key areas to go next, I would say it probably falls in there are numerous paths that security teams can take, but here are a few to consider. First is, enhance your vulnerability management and your risk prioritization frameworks, and also focus on exposure management, right? Because in such a modern day where a lot of assets are being moved into the cloud, security through obscurity is actually not a valid strategy for protecting your cloud assets, Second, have your security team focus on improving threat hunting and correlations in the SIEM, right? An unmanaged asset where you don't have the visibility is a key challenge because it might be pinging to a malicious infrastructure because it has a CVE. This is the classic way in which cloud-based assets are exploited today. So getting a constant exposure analysis and exposure management as a part of your overall organization and theater of operations becomes important. And the last is focus on mapping the adversary TTPs to the exposures that you are seeing, right? So that you can understand indicators of compromise that you can leverage as a part of your SIEM and use the SIEM to drive correlations and additional detections to further enhance the posture of your security team. Thank you.